Okay, well, that's our questions for now.
Okay. All right. And now we'll move on to our next portion of the webinar this evening. One of the other components of holistic management, and it's really an important aspect of holistic management, and I could spend a lot of time discussing this, but due to the constraints of this night's and the focus of this tonight's webinar, I'm just going to briefly cover the ecosystem process and the health of the ecosystem process. As it states there, all life is really dependent on the health of the ecosystem, and we must take into account the impact of our decision on the four ecosystem processes. It's critical to understand how your decisions impact the environment if you're going to be sustainable. This is even true if you don't manage land directly. But this is really a key important aspect of holistic management, is to really look at how your decisions and actions impact the environment. And again, I don't have time to really go into that depth, but I can provide some resources on Moodle that people can read more, or if they have questions later, we can do that in discussion forum. So where are we? Well, we know our current situation. We know we've defined our role under management. We've also know our destination. We've got our holistic goal. And now how do we keep on path with where we want to go? And that's where we come into testing decisions come into play. And holistic management really provides there's 7 testing guidelines within holistic management, and they're really help to look at the triple bottom line, which is really the economic, the environmental, and the social aspects of creating a sustainable business. And they also make sure that you're moving in the direction of your holistic goal. But they do that by really broadening the 7 testing guidelines. Really are designed to provide a big picture view of the decision or the action you're going to take. They help to broaden your view of the issues being tested. They combine really thinking and logical questions with feeling questions. And I know a lot of people have problems with feeling questions, but it's important to know how this decision or action makes you feel at the end. And it helps you consider the short-term and long-term consequences of your decisions. These are the 7 testing guidelines. And really, before you start going into the 7 testing guidelines, you want to gather all the research that you normally gather when you're making a decision. You want to, for example, if you were going to buy a new tractor, you want to look at the price, what it costs, what quality you want to get, the durability. You might want to get a friend's recommendation. You also want to look at what's the source of the money that you're going to available for the purchase of that. And then you use that information to help you go through the testing guidelines, because you want to go through the testing guidelines in really minutes and not hours. The only testing guidelines that take more time are the gross profit analysis and marginal reaction, and we'll go in more detail next week into the gross profit analysis. You answer these questions in a yes or no or pass-fail manner. If a question does not apply, you skip it and you essentially move on. If you do not know the answer to the question, again, you can skip it, or you may need to stop in the testing process and gather additional information to help you make a better decision. The first question we'll look at is the cause and effect. And this question asks, does this action address the root cause of the problem? Really, in order to answer this question, you need to clearly define the problem and the root cause. You want to make sure you're dealing with the root cause and not a symptom. If you're not dealing with a problem, then you would skip this question. In contrast, if you are dealing with a problem, ask this question first, because if action fails the test, then you should look for another solution. If you continue to spend time and or money on an action that fails the cause and effect test, you're probably wasting your time and money. Now we'll go through an example. Go through an example of using the cause and effect test. We have a weed in a pasture, and the action that we're going to test is whether or not we should spray the weed. So now we're going to do a quick poll and get the audience's opinion of whether or not. So I'll turn it over to Colette to run the poll.
Okay. Polls are something that we're going to use throughout this course, so it's almost like a little survey question. And so I will launch the poll. So our question is, will spraying the weed pass the cause and effect test? So you select one of the answers, yes, no, or not enough. So 11%, 22% of our participants have voted, 60%, 94%. Okay, 100% of folks have voted, so I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So 17% said yes, that spraying the weed will pass the cause and effect test. 17% said no, and 67% said that we don't have enough information. So I'll go ahead and hide the poll. Oops, sorry.
No problem. Thanks, Colette. And it's probably true. You don't have enough information because you really don't. What you need to really make the decision about this would be essentially you'd have to have your own holistic goal to evaluate it. But I'm going to assume this is based on my situation, and we'll go through using the cause and effect test. And in my situation, the spraying the weed would not address the root cause of the problem. The weed itself is a symptom of an underlying problem. Now, since it failed the test, then I would go and try to determine what the root cause of the problem is. And one of the ways to do that is to use the 5 Whys, which is from Peter Singe's book, The Fifth Discipline. And that's not one of the resources you have available, but it is if you want to learn more about the 5 Whys, that's a good resource to look at. And I'll go through this as an example. So one way to so you'd ask yourself essentially a series of 5 Whys. So why is the weed there? Well, for example, there's bare soil. Why is the bare soil there? Well, the grass plants are small, they're low vigor. Why are the grass plants small? Well, they're being overgrazed. Why are they being overgrazed? Well, animals spend too much time in each pasture. And why? And the 5th question is why? Well, there's not enough pastures. Well, maybe I need more fencing. So now you have another action or another decision to test, and that's whether or not to build more fences so you could have maybe a better rotation system. And that would be another action you would test and go back through the cause and effect and see if that would pass. One of the other tests that we'll look is the weak link test. Each chain has a weak link. Where will a chain break? Essentially at its weakest link. The weak link test is designed to make sure you're investing your resources to strengthen the weakest link in the chain. And if you don't address essentially the weakest link in the chain, you're putting money elsewhere, then you're probably wasting resources. The weak link test applies to 3 areas. One is social, one is biological, and the other is financial. I'll cover each of those next here. So the social weak link asks you a question about, have you considered or addressed any confusion, anger, or opposition to this action that could create with people whose support you need in the near or distant future? Essentially, this question sends up red flags you need to know about. Can you figure out how to make sure you don't create misunderstandings or ultimately worse, obstacles to getting where you want to go? For example, when I started to go out on the road with managing the goat herd, Sulani had a lot more things to do at home, which increased her stress level. So we needed to figure out ways to reduce that stress at her at home. One of the options was look at ways that I could manage my business, email, and finances while I'm on the road. So one option for that would be, well, potential item we would test is a laptop computer. Would that and provide me a laptop or computer, I'd be able to do all that work at home. She wouldn't have to do it, and that would help address that social weak link in that particular with my action of going on the road with managing the animals for vegetation management projects.